Then Victoria Plant. Heyman is first.
Thank you for your patience. Hi everybody. My name is AJ, and I'm with Sunrise Triangle. And it's hard to believe that in this year of 2026, humanity is still putting its head in the sand while climate change wreaks havoc on the globe, hitting the most vulnerable and least culprit the hardest. Where I'm from, a statewide drought has become the unfortunate norm. I've had multiple relatives lose their homes to wildfires. The summer before my freshman year, I watched the hills behind my high school be engulfed in flames, not knowing whether or not my high school would still be standing come the first day of class. Knowing how much water data centers consume while watching billionaires, CEOs, and elected officials bend over backwards to sacrifice our fresh water during a worsening drought makes me sick. There's always a price to pay, and there seems to be a pattern on who's left with the bill. It's the working class, the youth, and the houseless. All while the richer get rich, often aided by self-interested elected officials. Commissioners, if you're better than that, step up and prove it. Protect our land, our communities, our futures. Vote to pass an AI data center moratorium. No loopholes, no carve-outs. We're counting on you.
Good evening. My name is Megan Honig, and I've been a resident of Durham County for the past 11 years. I worked in the tech industry as a software developer. The kinds of AI tools enabled by the data centers we're here to discuss tonight are becoming standard in my field of work. So you might think it's against my own interests to come here as I do in support of the strongest possible moratorium against data centers in Durham County. But I am not just a tech worker. I am also a human being who depends on the air and water in Durham County. And I am a neighbor of some 300,000 other humans who do the same. It is in this capacity that I call upon the county commissioners to enact the strongest possible moratorium with no carve-outs, no loopholes. Thank you.
Good evening, board and county members. My name is Edgar Arieta, and I'm a member for the Party of Socialism and Liberation, as well as a resident of our dear Durham. However, I grew up not too far from here in Warren County, an hour and some change away, and the birthplace of the international environmental justice movement. And this was sparked by, greedy, careless corporations dumping toxic, cancer-causing PCBs along North Carolina's roadways. And then the state chose to build the designated landfill in a rural, low-income, and predominantly black county. And following failed legal challenges, residents and civil rights leaders launching a 7-week nonviolent protest in 1982. Some of you may even remember that. And over 500 demonstrators who laid down in the path of dump trucks full of toxic soil were arrested. And I grew up hearing stories from these courageous individuals, and I cannot help but see that history does not have a way of repeating but rhyming, because we are at a similar crossroads, and this time it's affecting rural and non-rural communities alike. A similar environmental crisis, a similar capitalist system putting profit and self-interest over the people and the planet that we actually live here. I am here in support of the strongest possible moratorium, 32 months as of now, loophole-free. Please do the right thing. I implore you to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Victoria, one second. We'll have Samantha Kropp, then we'll go to Molly Crabb, then Clark Thomas, then Elizabeth Thomas. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, commissioners. I'm here tonight because I'm a young person concerned about climate change and scared for my future. Tonight, I'd like to appeal to your sense of reason, not yell at you, and say, yes, this is a nuanced issue. Not all data centers are the same. Not all of them are AI or hyperscalers. They all require different regulations. However, we must study them first, and that's the whole point of this moratorium. I think those two companies will be fine not building another data center in the next 9 months, and I'm not really sure why we need these carve-outs. So let's have that messy regulations conversation later, but for now, please amend the ordinance and pass a loophole-free moratorium. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Samantha Kropp. I work as the Neuse Riverkeeper and Director of Advocacy for a local water quality nonprofit. And I'm also a brand new mom who is concerned about our collective future. As a water person, I want to talk about water, and I want to address the myth that closed-loop cooling systems are somehow environmentally friendly alternatives. Closed loop does not mean zero waste. It does not mean zero water use or zero pollution. According to an article from the National Institute of Health, in closed loop systems, loss of 25% of system volume per month is not uncommon due to issues like leaks and seals. And even when functioning properly, closed-loop systems require high-quality water and often use chemicals to prevent corrosion and bacterial growth. When that water is flushed or discharged, it can carry biocides, corrosion inhibitors, heavy metals, and potentially PFAS, which we know are forever chemicals. And these go to our wastewater treatment plants, which aren't always designed to remove all of these contaminants. And so what happens is they get discharged directly into our rivers, our streams, and ultimately our drinking water. Please pass a strong moratorium for all new data center development until we have the science, safeguards, and sideboards necessary to protect our water security and communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kropp.
Hi, my name is Molly Crabb. I'm a Durham resident, a social worker, and a proud member of the Party for Socialism and Liberation. I am here to urge you to pass a strong, loophole-free data center moratorium tonight. The rapid invasion of data centers happening nationwide is the latest way that corporations are maximizing profits through artificial intelligence, with working class people bearing the costs. There are over 90 data centers in North Carolina alone, and over a dozen more being proposed. Those costs include polluting our waterways and land, poisoning people with forever chemicals and constant noise pollution, and jacking up already skyrocketing utility bills. These costs are regardless of the data center size. And thanks to that loophole, big tech can run rampant with unregulated electricity usage in our county. And as you heard, we don't even know the impact of this usage. County commissioners, tonight you have a choice. Stand with the people of Durham or stand with corporate interests. Pass a strong loophole-free moratorium, protect our health and our future. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners. Appreciate your service. My name is Clark Thomas. I'm a longtime resident of Durham County, and I'm asking you to impose a moratorium with no carve-outs or loopholes. One of the things I did want to talk to you about with respect to what this industry is being driven by is AI, which is a bubble. And what's going to happen when that bubble bursts and all this infrastructure has been put in place, and who's going to pay the bill for those extensions of services to these centers that are no longer in service? That's going to be passed on to us. And so there are secondary effects, not just cumulative effects. So thank you for your vote and your time tonight.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Elizabeth Thomas, longtime resident of Durham County. I'm here tonight to talk to you and ask you, please, to vote yes on the moratorium, a complete moratorium, not a carve-out, not loopholes. You represent us, the citizens, not big tech. We are asking you to put a pause on data centers. There's so much we don't know about them, but the things we do know are not good. One of the things I saw on this chart was data centers create very few permanent positions. Most are temporary construction jobs. They produce 100 times fewer jobs per unit of energy than other industries. Every $1.95 million in subsidies yields one permanent job. Think of the future of our children and of the people that cannot be here to speak tonight. Our children are not here. The animals cannot speak for themselves. Please give us a good vote tonight. Thank you.
Okay, we have is it Much Carter or Meech? Meech Carter. We have Jen Wisen, Emily Sutton, and then Kayla. Last name Kayla. Okay.
Great. Thanks. My name is Mish Carter. I am a member of the Durham City County Environmental Affairs Board, but I'm here today in my personal capacity. First, I'd like to know who the county has met with from the Environmental Affairs Board and what was substantively discussed. I'm a liaison for the EAB's Data Center Regulations Working Group, and we were approached to have a conversation. To be clear, that conversation has not been had. I have the email receipts to prove it. This moratorium certainly was not brought to our board in any kind of capacity. We would have loved to advise that I personally, as a member, support a moratorium longer than 9 months, and I specifically oppose the carve-out for 100,000 square foot facilities. I work in energy. Data centers of all sizes are often accompanied by fossil fuel generation, and non-diesel could easily mean methane gas. We are seeing the exact same thing in Richmond County right now, where there are 650 diesel generators being proposed at an Amazon site. When that diesel is removed, methane gas will be flowing through those generators, powering that data center in Richmond County. Also want to mention, passing a moratorium is very necessary for us, and I encourage you to support it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jen, and I'm here today as a Durham resident, Triangle DSA member, and a person who simply cares about my community. Commissioners, it is not just us from the public who need to be concerned about AI and data centers taking our jobs. We are seeing nationally that elected officials are hurting their own job security with their actions supporting unregulated data center development, as there have been 33 recall efforts in the first 6 months of 2026 related to data center development, not to mention the toll on re-election chances. You all can see the turnout today, as well as from the emails that I'm sure you have been receiving, on how Durham County residents want a strong data center moratorium without loopholes. We need to pause these data center buildouts so we can first make laws that protect our jobs, our electricity bills, our waterways, and our communities at large from the cost of rushed, poorly planned, and oftentimes purposeless data centers. Us residents are aware of the problems with these data centers. Please use your votes today to side with us. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm a small farmer in North Durham. I'm not good at public speaking, so I'm doing my best right now. I want to say thank you to Durham County because y'all saved my farm this year. Durham County funded a cistern, which enabled us to save 1,000 gallons of water in addition to our well, which eventually got so dry with the drought this year. And I'm asking you to save our farm again. I want a strong moratorium. I want 32 months because we need to do lots of research, and the research isn't there yet. We need to see longer term effects. I'm really concerned about water. I need water to grow food. We have, I don't know how many recalls. I don't know how many new people are coming to my small farm and asking for food because they don't feel safe buying food in the grocery store. And Durham County has the opportunity to enhance the support you have for small farmers by making sure our water is clean and we can grow food for our residents. And I don't want to compete with data centers for land, and I don't want the young farmers to either. It's already too expensive. Thank you.
One moment, Kayla. One moment. We have Stephanie Gans. Mustafa. Then Charla Rios. Yeah, that's what we'll do. Charla Rios.
Chair Lee, Commissioner Jacobs, this is what an AI data center sounds like 24/7, 365. Would you want to live next to that?
Hi, my name is Stephanie Gans. I'm a Durham resident and executive director of a nonprofit called Clean Water for North Carolina. I just want to share a little bit of what we're seeing across North Carolina right now, which is that data centers have to wait a long time to get the transmission infrastructure that they need in order to run. So a 100 megawatt data center, we're starting to see that data centers are asking to run 24/7 on generators. There's nothing in this moratorium that says that it's almost like there's an expectation that it would connect to the grid. And that is not what we're seeing in other communities. We're seeing folks try to get that through, and the DEQ is not stopping them. You guys are the brakes. In terms of our electric bills, the NC Utilities Commission has heard testimony from our impartial public staff that we need a 1-year pause on new data center contracts. 100 megawatts is 1/13 of a new Duke Energy methane gas power plant. That is a real contribution to our high electric bills that we're all paying. This exemption that could allow a 100 megawatt facility through is letting down all of the folks in Durham facing high bills and power shutoffs. Please pass a moratorium without that exemption.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mustafa Al-Hamida, and much like everyone in this room, I am a Durham resident. You know who is not a Durham resident? The owners of these tech companies that own billions and billions of dollars. That these carve-outs are the only people that will be assisting. I want to remind everyone in this room about what's going on in Lake Tahoe right now. Lake Tahoe is currently slated to lose their current power company, Nevada Energy, by May of next year. So if you are not concerned with water usage or emissions or noise pollution, you should be concerned with that, because that's something that's going to directly impact your guys' jobs as well as everybody else in Durham politics and possibly even state politics as well. Thank you guys for letting me speak. I advocate for the strongest moratorium that you could possibly release.
Good evening. My name is Charlie Rios, and I am giving voice to a letter from Loudoun County. I came to Northern Virginia for work in 2022. I'm a graduate from Appalachian State University and an electrical engineer who works in tech. I don't have to speculate about what the effects of data centers are because my neighborhood is already filled with them. To get to the bike trail from my house, I have to ride past several Amazon data centers that total 400,000 square feet. This is only the beginning. The data centers are towering, humming gray boxes surrounded on all sides by spiked security fences with barbed wire. At night, the perimeter is lit up with spotlights. The newer ones have false windows to make them look more like ordinary office buildings to hide the fact that once built, they typically employ less than a dozen people. In the winter, I can stand on the sidewalk and feel the heat coming off the buildings. Every time I ride or walk by them, I wonder what I'm breathing in, and if it'd be better for my health just to stay inside. This is what's coming to Durham and everywhere else big tech can manage. Whatever Microsoft or Google or Amazon is peddling to you about economic benefits and technological innovation in cloud computing and AI, this is the actual physical future of what they want to build in neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. Now we have Jana Sims, Lindsay Savelli, Scott Levitan, then Beth Brutch.
Hello, my name is Jana Sims. I'm a resident of Durham County, a member of Southerners on New Ground, and a former IBM employee. The tech world has a motto of move forward and break it. I don't want the tech world to destroy my neighborhood and my community. Reading from IBM's website on how IBM defines a hyperscale data center, it says, the facility should contain at least 5,000 servers and occupy at least 10,000 square feet of physical space. Energy draw over 100 megawatts. From this, we can infer that IBM believes it's possible to do a mega-scale data center on just 10,000 square feet, and we're trying to allow in 100,000 square feet. What does that open up? Today, the Washington Post reported that in Texas, some Republican voters are starting to organize around the name Break Rank to vote for a Democratic governor on a single issue: the Republicans' wholesale welcoming of data centers into Texas. Pass a strong moratorium with no loopholes and at least 32 months.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Savelli. I'm a Durham County resident, and as part of my work, I test people's private wells, and across multiple counties, the worst part of my job is having to call people and tell them that they have any sort of water contaminant, and especially PFAS. And we know that these data centers emit PFAS, and they're contaminating our water. The EPA is currently proposing rollbacks on the very few PFAS protections that they had implemented under the Biden administration, and there are no federal regulations for private well water quality. So when private well users find out that they have contamination, there's virtually no support to help them remediate those harms. I'm begging you to please pass an exemption-proof 32-month moratorium to protect our water, to protect our health, and to help heal the earth and repair the harms that we have already caused by allowing these massive industries to move forward without any restraint. Please, please, please pass a foolproof, an exemption-proof moratorium. Thank you for your time this evening.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Scott Levitan. I'm president of Research Triangle Foundation. I know my comments won't be popular tonight, and I appreciate the respect of everyone in the room. RTP is a research and development community. It relies on technology infrastructure like enterprise-scale data centers to operate and continue to attract businesses. We've had a 66-year partnership with Durham County, and both RTP, Durham County, and Durham City have benefited greatly from our mutual success. On behalf of the 55,000 employees, 400 companies that operate in RTP, I ask that the moratorium be passed as written. Thank you for listening to me.
Hey, please, we're not going to do that.
Hi, my name is Beth Brooke. I'm a Durham County resident for the past 50 years, I guess. I'm getting old. Please pass a moratorium. No loopholes. I think we've heard enough tonight to know that as much research as we've done, there's so much more to do. We don't know how our wastewater is going to get cleaned. We just don't know how we're going to get the PFAS out of the system. There's so much that we don't have in place. The drought this summer really emphasized to me the importance of water. I'm up here past my bedtime as a Durham public school teacher who cares about the young people who I'm going to be seeing for the next 179 days, and then some. Not that we're counting, but I went without water during Hurricane Fran, and then I went without water a bunch of times this summer when our sewers mains broke. So water matters. Water's life.
So now we have, it just says Coco here, and we have Rafael Diaz and Samantha Boyd, and then Andrea Casales, sorry. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Coco, and I'm a proud resident of Durham County. My neighbors have done an amazing job of speaking of the environmental impacts that will come from these data centers. So I'm here to speak from personal experience about how these have affected my friends and family who work in technology. I received my MBA from Duke University 9 years ago. Thankfully, I changed careers. I'm very happy with my career change, but I hear every day from my coworkers and my classmates about what's happening inside of the companies that are in RTP. Many large tech companies like to use the Trojan horse of jobs to bring data centers into communities. The reality is some jobs are created. Construction jobs are created temporarily. People have to run the data centers, but it's only about a dozen people. And then on the other end of things, those who are college educated, who have master's degrees, who are working in these companies, are being forced to train AI models to replace them. I have had friends who have had to lay off all of those who report to them because AI has been used instead. It is not okay, and it is not safe for jobs and for our environment, for our community. Please pass a data center moratorium that is at least 12 months long with zero loopholes for the sake of your constituents and this county that you call home. Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Rafael. I'm a member of the DSA and a resident of Durham County. Like many others in the area, I came here because of the abundance of job opportunities for tech workers. As many of us are aware, the Research Triangle Park has contributed tremendously to the economic growth of this city. However, we cannot solely attribute this growth to the companies within RTP. The real source of this economic power lies with the workers, creating surplus value through their labor. With that in mind, how could a data center support this growth with only a handful of workers? Data centers are largely self-governing, needing only 4 employees per acre of land. I myself have worked on AI and machine learning algorithms. While never said explicitly, I know that the end goal is to train an AI to replace me. Let's not kid ourselves into thinking a data center would be good for workers. If even people in tech can be replaced, then what does that mean for the thousands of people that RTP employs? We lose our jobs and have nowhere to go. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Samantha Boyd. I'm just going to tell your experience. I took my granddaughter out this weekend. We went riding around. And with all the construction, she said, trees are going to be disappearing. We ain't going to see no trees. This is what my granddaughter has to look forward to the future. Do I have to add water too? That we ain't going to have no clean water for them? And also, I didn't hear a clear answer about that being radioactive. There wasn't a clear answer. We hate to have it built and then find out the answers. Oh yeah, it's radioactive. How are we going to clean it up? Please vote no.
My name is Andrea Casales, and I want to thank to the officials that are actually looking at the speakers. I want to remind everyone that local officials work for us, and we have the right to ask for more, including doing more than the city and looking at us while we speak. And what you can do is, number one, not say that upstairs is a data center, and number two, amend the proposed moratorium with no loopholes. Right now, you have the opportunity to set guardrails by delivering a strong and expansive moratorium. This does not allow for loopholes. And if my doctorate in nursing research has afforded me anything, it is that evidence-based research that is not self-funded by billion and trillion dollar big tech companies is needed so that we aren't paying a bigger price down the line, not just environmentally, financially, but in lives. And that takes time. The people of Durham cannot shoulder any more of that cost. My patients cannot shoulder any more of that cost. I cannot shoulder any more of that cost. They cannot privatize the profits while socializing the cost. I mean, we are the city of medicine and the second smartest city in the U.S. So we're being told that if we don't accept this, that we are driving away being employers, revenue, progress, our future, when in reality, the only thing we may be driving away is a parasitic relationship.
Thank you,
Do
Dr.
better.
Gonzalez. Okay, we have Pablo Friedman. We have Isaac Hessel Robinson. Annie Doran. Ryder Salmons.
All right. So, a couple things. I thought what came out of City Council was a compromise. Some of us wanted a 2-year moratorium. You know, Surrey County, a much more MAGA county, has a 2-year moratorium, and 1 year was the compromise. And additionally, there was some language put in to sort of benefit some sort of corporate interests here in Durham, and some of us weren't aligned with that. So long story short is what the city council passed was actually a compromise. And so to come here tonight to see these exemptions put in sort of a little bit of a slap in the face, those of us who already compromised with the city council when they had their vote. Now, you all can do what you want tonight. Mr. Levitin, thank you for coming up tonight. In the strongest traditions of our democracy, I find your comments a little bit disrespectful to the residents of Durham. The state legislature gives you sales tax exemptions. Duke Energy is burdening the residential ratepayer with a large rate increase to fund data centers in this state. Additionally, you all have special taxing privileges from the state. So for you to come up here tonight and say that you want this without providing anything for the rank and file people of Durham, do better. Do better. Do a fair deal. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Isaac. I'm a Durham County voter and tech worker, and I would like to just remind you all what these AI data centers are being used for. They're being used to create convincing scams that can mimic anyone's voice. They're being used to create deep fake porn of real people that is almost indistinguishable from real photos, including vast amounts of child pornography. And let me remind you, Minnesota recently passed a ban on AI-generated child porn, and Elon Musk's Twitter, formerly Twitter, which runs the Grok AI, believed it was a large enough part of their business model, this child pornography, to sue to block a ban on, again, AI-generated child pornography. Flock cameras that are seemingly overwhelmingly being used by cops to stalk their exes or their potential partners. They are being used to eliminate jobs to boost tech CEOs' margins at a time when tech CEOs are already some of the richest people in the history of our planet. They are not being used to create economic development because almost every single AI, 95% of AI startups are failing. There is less revenue in the entire market than one company needs to sustain its profits. AI is an anti-human grift. We should not suffer permanent...
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Just a little, what looks like a little person there.
Hi, my name is Annie Doran, and I want to pose a few questions to this council. How is the county going to guarantee more forever chemicals won't make their way from data centers into our drinking water or surrounding communities? How can the county set an enforceable standard on how much water these data centers will be able to use? If the county intends to support the broader goal of helping the community of Durham reach net zero emissions by 2050 at the latest, how can we reach those goals if we're allowing new data centers with no renewable requirements? How can the county keep the development of these data centers from affecting individuals' electric and water bills? How many will be allowed to be built? If the answer to any of these questions is I don't know, then that is why Durham County needs a strong moratorium without exceptions for new data centers. Thank you.
Okay, we have Ryder Salmons. Ryder. Okay. It's Dan, I think something with an R. Dan Rutt. Dan Rutt? Anyone named Dan? Okay. All right. Kimberly Lamb. We have Jen Alexander. Ramsey Ritchie. Ramsey Ritchie, and Patrick Alexander.
Hello, my name is Kimberly Lamb. I am a member of the American Association of University Professors at Duke University. I just want to stress how much educators are against AI. From what I heard at the meeting on August 3rd here, it seemed as though there's a sentiment that the technology is inevitable. I really don't think it is. AI is making education harder, and it's an impediment to education and its goals. And I just don't think there's any other way around it by any means. The other point I want to make is, and many people have spoken about this with more specificity than I can bring, but I really want to emphasize the environmental risks of these data centers. There was a lot of discussion last time about the importance of business. We don't have business if we don't have a planet. My mother was just my mother was recently diagnosed with Parkinson's, which is linked to forever chemicals. I would really like to know what the relationship between forever chemicals and a disease like Parkinson's is. So
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jen Alexander. I'm in support of a complete moratorium on new and expanding data centers. I don't believe we should be granting exemptions when the proposed moratorium is only 9 months, and when we have no regulations even for small data centers to follow. While we can be reasonably sure that an enterprise data center will have less of an impact than a hyperscale data center, they still have no data center specific regulations or requirements that apply to them, and it's unacceptable to allow expansions and new builds in this scenario. I'm also concerned that with a 9-month moratorium, you're not leaving yourself enough time to adequately research the policy and regulations of other areas, nor the impact existing data centers have had, and how it's differed from the promises made by the companies. It sounds like the staff have already done a lot of research, so you may already be well on your way, but I ask that the board add milestones that for the regulation development, and if the milestones aren't being met, that the moratorium be automatically extended. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair Lee, Vice Chair Alum, members of commission, the public. Thank you all for being here. My name is Ramsey Ritchie. I'm a Durham resident. I love this town. I also lead public policy and strategic initiatives for the Greater Durham Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber supports a moratorium on hyperscale data centers in Durham County because without proper regulation, they're an inefficient use of valuable land and resources, and we applaud the county's work to hold them to high environmental and community impact standards. We also support modest exceptions to that moratorium. Unlike neighboring counties that have passed sweeping bans on all data center activity, Durham is home to some of the most technologically advanced companies in the country, and those companies are the beating heart of the state's economy. Data centers have played an important role in keeping that heart beating for over 40 years. They're not a new technology. We're right to guard against the negative impacts of massive data centers in their most extreme forms. We do not want to be Loudoun County. But that doesn't mean that every data center presents the same risk. We can draw a line between the projects that we need to scrutinize most closely and those that can meet reasonable interim standards. The exceptions built in this moratorium draw that line conservatively by restricting data centers. I think that was a minute.
Thank you. Yes, that was a minute. Thank you, Mr. Ritchie.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. My name is Patrick Alexander, and I retired from the military, from the Army, after almost 30 years of service. And in that time, I recognized that all I wanted after we were done, my wife, my children, our dogs and cats, is a little slice of peace and quiet. We found it, built it, now we're living it, and now we have to deal with this. But it's not just our peace and quiet, it's everybody's peace and quiet here. Okay, we can see the stars at night, we've got the wild animals, we love it. I saw a lot of bad things in 30 years. and I lived to tell about it. And I lived because I could see and identify the BS. Everybody here can see and identify it. We don't need any of this, okay? So, no exceptions, no loopholes. Just pass the moratorium, please, so that we can all enjoy this wonderful place. Thank you.
Okay, and so that brings us to the end of the public comment period of the public meeting. So I will close the public meeting, and now we'll have comments. Okay. Let's take a short recess, bio break, and then we'll come back and do the commissioner comments. Yeah, is that okay with you all? Okay, we'll take a very short recess. Let's do 5 minutes. We'll be back at 10:15. Let's start finding our seats, please. Can we start finding our seats, please? Can we start finding our seats, please? All right, we're coming back. Can I have your attention, please? We're coming back. Thank you. It is 10:15, and we will resume. Good. We're on? Yeah, okay. Okay, we're back. Thank you all for your patience. That was a long public comment period. But it's important that we got through them all. So we're at the point where the public meeting has been closed. There was a lot of public comment. There was a lot of things said. And so I want to ask the board, are there any clarifying questions based on what we heard in public comment that we'd like the staff to answer? So I'll open up a period before we go into the statements, just for any clarifying questions. Let's please keep it to clarifying questions, and then we'll have time for statements later. So DCM Jones, it may be questions for you here. These are just clarifying questions from what we were hearing, okay? All right, Commissioner Burton.
Thank you, Chair Lee. I had wrote this question down earlier. And we know that right now in Durham County, there are about 14 data centers, enterprise data centers, right? And I think the question I had was, do we know about their energy usage, how much water they use? And then also with 2 of those enterprise data centers, and I'm clearly saying enterprise because they're not AI data centers, 2 of them are over 400,000 square feet. Do we know what they're used for? So that was the question I had.
So one of those 400,000 square foot ones is, to my understanding, just a commercial data center. It's not associated with a particular use. I don't have information on the other one, so I can't answer about that one. In terms of water consumption, we have reached out to the Water Management Department to try and to see if they have data they can share with us about the water usage of these facilities, and we have not received that data yet.
And one more question. Sarah, I believe you said, I know your team is doing research right now with regards to the ordinance that we're going to approve later on. You said how soon will you be completed with it, or to present it to both bodies?
We are hoping to be complete with our research and have a preliminary draft prepared by December.
Thank you so much.
Vice Chair Lom, did you have any clarifying questions?
I asked my questions.
Okay. Commissioner Jacobs.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to try to, I have a few questions, and I wanted to try to follow up on some of the concerns that we heard from residents. So following up on what Commissioner Burton said, because we received a list of about 20 existing data centers in RTP, and they range in size from 450,000 square feet to the smallest being, I think it was 10,000 square feet. Some of them are basically 40 years old, 1987, all the way up to, I think the most recent was 2013. I was just wondering how much you know about them, or I might need to refer to Mr. Levitan, who might know more. But again, what are these all? What kind of data centers would you describe them as in terms of what their function is?
So I have to be real honest and say that we don't know. When someone submits, for instance, a site plan approval for a data center, they do not have to tell us what the intended usage of that data center is. A lot of these sites that have been previously approved were did not even come in as data centers because that's not a use category in the ordinance. So they may have been processed as industrial light uses, as flex office, flex warehouse. So I think on file when I looked, we had probably half a dozen max site plans that have come through as data centers listed as the use. So it is very hard for staff to determine what the data centers are being used for. Some of them we didn't even have records that they had been turned into data centers.
Okay. In terms of what the process is currently for data centers, a site plan or a permit, now that we have the RTP 3.0 zoning, which was recently approved, it's a new zoning for RTP that has different stricter requirements than we have in our current zoning ordinance for different things. I'm wondering, what would the process be like at this point? Would they first have to go through the RTP 3.0 zoning, or how does that work? And again, maybe, I don't know if Mr. Levitan has to answer that, but just wondering, since it just recently was approved.
Sure, and I'll defer to Mr. Levitan if he would like to talk about their process, what may or may not happen before or after it comes through the planning approval process. But a site plan is required to depict, what the development is going to be and demonstrate that it meets all ordinance requirements. At this point, again, because we have no specific classification that is data centers as a use, they're just classified as a general industrial light use, and there are very few standards related to that use.
Are you able to answer that? How the process is currently going to work, or? If he gets to speak, the public should also speak. Okay. I just asked.
Please. Please.
I'm asking an informational question about how
Wendy,
a new zoning ordinance
please
works.
let me. Wendy, let's not. Sorry, Mr. Levitan. So I totally understand your objections, but I ask that you don't interrupt the meeting. All right? I was just saying, let me handle it. I don't need you yelling out in the meeting. We're not going to do that in here. Okay? Continue on.
Thank you. So do we, Deputy Manager Jones, do we know, in terms of the information that we did, because one of my follow-up questions from our last meeting was just to try to understand what the impact will be to RTP, because basically with the city's moratorium, that there are only 3 areas of the county that pertain to Durham County. So we have the unincorporated areas, which is mostly northern Durham, and then we have RTP and Trayburn. Those are our only jurisdictions. Everything else in Durham is covered by the city of Durham. So I just want to clarify, and you could confirm this, Sarah, that because I heard a lot of concerns from people in northern Durham. We had a farmer speak, and we had some residents speak from northern Durham, and and I want to personally say I am against AI data centers, hyperscale data centers, but also the importance of protecting our watershed, which is in northern Durham, our farmland, and also the rural residential development that we do have there. But could you just confirm, Sarah, that with the current city moratorium, because any data center would need to be annexed into the city of Durham, would require water and sewer from the city, that we basically, at this point, for all intents and purpose, the unincorporated areas of the county are protected. Can you just confirm that?
That is correct.
Okay. I just think it's really important for people. I hear the fear about a lot of issues related to AI data centers and hyperscale data centers, and I share that, and I just want to, just so people can feel rest assured that that is protected. The unincorporated parts of the county are protected. We're not going to have AI data centers in the rural areas of the county. I just think it's important for people to know that. So that leaves us with Trayburn and RTP. So I just have some follow-up questions about that. Related to Trayburn, have we heard about any any data centers in Trayburn?
We have not.
Okay, and that's where we have a lot of our big manufacturing facilities like Corning and AW North Carolina, Merck. So that's where we have a lot of big manufacturing facilities. So related to RTP, could you tell us about what you heard from RTP in terms of why, and stakeholders? We got a lot of emails and letters and things, but could you go over what staff heard related to the reason for allowing these enterprise and edge data centers in terms of the current functioning of RTP, where that recommendation came from?
Yeah, I think RTF has explained that they have concerns about losing a competitive advantage that the Research Triangle Park has been working on for 60 plus years, if they were to lose out on this opportunity in the near term, and that has been their argument once this issue came to the forefront.
Okay, thank you. And then Sarah, related to because again, heard a lot of different concerns about things related to data centers, related to the water, energy usage, noise. In terms of what we can do in North Carolina, can you talk about that? Because in the session that we were in with UNC School of Government, they said, there are normal types of things that we can do in North Carolina, things like setbacks, the size of buildings, the scale, screening. We can look at light, we can look at noise. We can't look at electricity because we don't control that. What about things like, I know this includes the closed loop system and no generators. What kind of things realistically are we going to be able to address?
So I will say that on the city side, because the city controls its municipal water system, the city can impose additional restrictions related to the water system usage and specifications related to that. And as you mentioned, because facilities would have to be annexed into the city to get access to that water, right? You can't have certainly not a hyperscale center on well and septic, right? You need municipal water. The city would be able to enact changes to their city code to regulate that further. So that's one of the things that's being explored.
Okay. Anything else that comes to mind that beyond the normal kind of land use zoning that we normally are able to do?
Yeah, we can also, one of the things that's kind of land use adjacent that we often deal with is noise, although that is typically housed in both county code and city code, but we can put additional provisions in place to further address the elements that generate additional noise.
Okay, and do we currently have technology to remove, I know there are a lot of concerns about the what is in the water, even with a closed loop system. Do we have the technology that addresses that?
My understanding, and we are still doing research with particularly water management, is that that is not something that can be easily attributed to specific users, because that would require point testing at the discharge point of a site, and we don't have the authority to require that.
Okay, so that's not something that we will be able to address. Okay. And then related to electricity, it's my understanding, maybe Maurice, you could talk about where the electricity comes from in RTP. I mean, even though we can't, the Utilities Commission controls that. I know there are concerns about, we heard Loudoun County, things like that, but could you talk about where the power is within RTP?
I mean, I think it's primarily provided by Duke Energy, and they would fall under the same regulations that Duke has in place for the rest of the state. So that's something that we'd obviously have to continue to research and look for opportunities in which we might be able to investigate whether or not that's something that we can require. Once again, as Sarah mentioned, right now there's not a lot that we can require per state law when it comes to the oversight and regulation of these data centers, and maybe over the course of the next 3-6 months or so things will change, but we'll have to work within the laws that are currently in place in the state of North Carolina.
So I guess the question about things like supplementing with renewable energy or anything is that?
I mean, those are the types of things that we would investigate as part of the research that our folks are doing. And then from a legal standpoint, whether or not that's something that we can put into place as part of a larger ordinance.
Okay. I mean, it's my understanding that we actually have, Duke Energy's already built 4 substations in RTP actually to serve research and development there. So we would, just for folks to know that the energy source is there already. I know there was concern about situations like Loudoun County of having to create new sources.
One of the things to remember about Loudoun County is they have over 250 data centers in Loudoun County. And I believe the average data center is about 200,000 square feet if you took all of the square footage and divided that.
Okay, thank you.
Were those your questions? No, was that it? Okay. Any other? Go ahead, Vice Chair Lum.
Thank you. I know I said I didn't have questions, but one came up with Commissioner Jacobs' comments when she was asking about if we know what type of data centers exist, like what their uses are. You mentioned that since we don't have the current use case, we don't know which even of these facilities have become data centers because they didn't apply for it. Is there anything in this moratorium that protects from those instances going forward during this 9-month period that somebody could apply for permit for a warehouse or another industrial usage, and then 2 or 3 months down the line, after it's already built, they don't need to come back to us if we don't have the use cases changed or defined? They could change it to a.
So one of the things that we implemented after the city passed their moratorium is we changed our administrative applications to require a disclosure about whether the property will be used as a data center through this approval. Now granted, people could still fib or leave that conveniently out, but we are asking for that information up front. If someone were to convert something to a data center, There is the possibility of an enforcement action in the future, depending on what the regulations are, depending on whether, when their approval came, the permit choice statutes, like it's not a cut and dry answer. It is very situational, but there is potential for enforcement action.
Okay. Commissioner Jacobs.
Yeah, and just to follow up on something that Commissioner Lom raised before, in A, we are the exemption which allows a maximum size of 100,000 square feet of a data center with a closed loop system or other cooling technology, and also it goes into the detail, but also the non-diesel backup generation. Could we also require that with the D, which is about expansion of an existing data center?
Please. Please, excuse me. Would you please sit? Would you please sit? Would you please sit? I'm going to ask you to leave. I will ask you to leave. I'll ask you to leave. Okay, let's have her move. Let's go. Please leave.
To answer your question, there is no reason why we couldn't incorporate that language into D as well.
We could incorporate that.
Okay.
Okay. And also, just following up, I think somebody may have asked this already, but just to clarify, with the 20 data centers that we've had ranging in size and also how long, so you're saying, Sarah, have you had complaints just about the existing ones related to any issue?
I'm sorry, have
The
we had
existing
complaints?
data centers that are the list that we got, to your knowledge, have we had any complaints about any issues?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. So now we're going to move the comments, and then after that we'll do the vote. So I'm going to go Commissioner Burton, Vice Chair Lum, Commissioner Valentine, Commissioner Jacobs, and then myself. I'm going to ask you all to make sure you have your complete comments. I don't want to go back and forth. I don't want to so-and-so said this, I'm going to respond to this, and so forth. You know, please do your full comments, you know, when it's your time to speak. Now, we are approaching 10:40. I would imagine this is going to last past 11 o'clock. And so as per policy, we will need to vote to extend our meeting until the first level is going to be till midnight. So I'll need a motion to extend our session to midnight.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we extend our session until midnight. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please use the same sign. Now, if we happen to be approaching midnight, we'll have to do another motion, okay? But I'm hoping that we can go ahead and wrap this up. I have to drive a bus in the morning. All right. So, Commissioner Burton.
Thank you, Chair Lee. And I knew this was going to be a very interesting session, and I'm glad that we're having this discussion. Like I said earlier, on August 3rd, which was our work session, I was really thinking, okay, we get this we're doing a UDO, or we're doing an ordinance around this, around data centers, specifically hyperscale AI data centers, so we can have this regulation because they're not regulated. And by training, I'm a librarian, specifically at the elementary level, and what I did with children for 30 years is to teach them how to synthesize, evaluate information, right? So in this role, I've been doing this around this data center thing because I knew my knowledge was limited. And one of the things that I'm finding interesting with this whole debate, as I see many of the people in this room, young adults, and ourselves, I'm seeing people type on their phones. I see people, using the videos. I'm seeing people, I see some of the social media posts, right? And in order for us to do that, that requires data centers, right? Right. Just
Order,
let me
please.
finish. Whoa,
Hey,
let me finish.
We're not gonna. Hey,
Right.
we're not gonna do that.
No.
We're
That
not gonna.
does
I will,
require-
hold on,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Burton. I will clear the audience. Okay. We sat here for over an hour and heard public comment, and that was okay. Please remove. You're being asked to leave. Go ahead and leave. Okay. If we continue to have interruptions, I'll have to clear the audience. Okay? If we continue to have interruptions. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Continue, Commissioner
So,
Burton.
yes, all this technology that we use now requires data centers. So what I was wanting to say is it's important that we're clear with our language, that we are focusing on these hyperscale AI generative data centers. That's what we're focusing on. That's what I wanted to say. Because when we lump everything into one thing and we're putting these messages out, it does confuse people. We have gotten several emails today where they have said, no data centers in Durham. No data centers. We don't want data centers in Durham. Don't build data centers in Durham, right? But we just told you we have about 14 enterprise data centers in Durham and about 20 in the Research Triangle Park area. So I want us to be really clear about what we're talking about. That's number one. Number two, the other thing I want to mention, and this is, I'm giving clear direction to staff around how much water, one of the concerns that I read in a lot of the emails, what I've heard tonight, people are really concerned about the water, the energy usage, things of that nature. And they're concerned about it with regards to even enterprise data centers. It's clear that we haven't done those studies, right? And it's going to be important that staff, as we're doing this research, that we find out with the data centers that are presently here, that we do our research around that, because we want to make sure our communities are safe. And then also, finally, I've heard a lot of comments about us on this board, from many of you, how we're feeding into these corporate interests and things like that. I can only speak for myself. I don't do that. I really listen to people, and I really, really try to take to heart as to what the people want. So again, and I do my homework. So I went out to RTP. I looked at some of the data centers that are out there to see how big they are. I drove to Person County to see the one that's being built in Person County by Microsoft. I am very, very clear that I do not want, and I think all of us up here on this dais, we do not want these hyperscale, mega-sized data centers in Durham County. I am very, very clear on that. But I am concerned when we have these two binary things, what I call binary data centers, and they're all bad and they're not good. And like I said, I've read some of your posts. I'm very concerned about that because the city, in all honesty, they don't have, when they wrote their moratorium, they did not have to consider the Research Triangle Park at all. When they wrote their moratorium, they did not have to consider it. As the county, we do. So I just want to put that out there, that these are the things that we have to discuss, think about when we make these decisions. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Vice Chair Long.
Thank you. I'm going to talk fast because I do have like 6 pages of notes, so I will try to get through it fast to save everyone's time. So I'm going to start off with what I do not oppose, which is 4B, which, as our attorney mentioned, is what's required by state law. I'm going to touch it. And then Section 4C, which is also the exemption, which is in the cities, which is the office server room provisions, blah, blah. Because we know that hospital servers are not the concern that we are having here and what's bringing folks in the community out in objection to these carve-outs. My objections are explicitly Sections 4A and 4D. Because when we're talking about what an exemption is, we're basically defining the very thing that this time of the moratorium is supposed to be spent researching. We're saying in this ordinance, or in this moratorium, that a facility using closed-loop cooling system is exempt. By saying that, we're saying that using closed-loop cooling resolves all our problems and resolves the concerns that are being raised. And when we exempt facilities relying on non-diesel backup, we are finding that any remaining or alternate emissions would be acceptable. And when we exempt anything under 100,000 square feet, we're saying that a building that size does not raise the problems that have been brought to us here, and we are also mentioning ourselves in the memo. But we haven't done any of the research. As you said, we've heard from staff that they're conducting the research now and that we don't know. We don't even have a way to collect the data around the PFAS. So Section 6 of this ordinance lists the studies that we haven't even done yet. So I just don't see how we can say in one document that we need 9 months to answer these questions, but then in another document say that we already know the answers by putting in these exemptions. And then looking at our own text, Section 3.2 tells the public that the moratorium works by preventing vesting of development rights under outdated regulations that do not address the impacts of covered uses. And that is statutorily justified. But then Section 4 then allows a class of covered uses to vest under precisely the same outdated regulations. So the ordinance is contradicting itself. The moratorium is contradicting itself within 4 sections of each other. And that matters because we know that if there's any sort of action or concern that residents bring to us or that somebody wants to challenge the moratorium, under General Statute 160D-107F, which constitutes moratoriums, it says a challenge to a moratorium receives expedited review and the county would bear the burden of showing compliance. And I don't know how we would show compliance when we're contradicting ourselves within our own moratorium. And then also in our memo, it says that we found that these facilities present substantial electricity consumption, water consumption, noise pollution, air emissions, hazardous material storage. All of those, we have these 8 categories in our own findings. But then Section 4A only screens 2 of them. And when we screen just 2 of them in this moratorium, which is what we're supposed to be doing this time, these 9 months, to be defining them for the actual UDO changes and ignoring the other issues, we're basically building a gate that only checks 2 concerns and is allowing things in that still have all the 6 other concerns that we have. We know, again, we're talking about the closed loop systems. I know that that is a better system than what these centers use right now, but we don't know. We don't have an answer because we are still researching of, is it the best option? that could exist. And it may well be, but we haven't done that research. And the thing is, though, these closed loops cooling systems save water, but they're using more electricity because the chillers are doing the work that evaporation was doing for free. And electricity consumption was another one of our listed concerns that we had in our own memo. So we're saying that we have a concern of electricity consumption, but we are okay with this other method because it uses less water, but it uses more electricity. And so I just want us to be very clear about how we're defining all of these things that the UDO changes are meant to, and all the research is supposed to be bringing this information to us before we've done any of that work. And then section 4D, that's the one I raised before, and Commissioner Jacobs brought up in her comments, really confuses me the most, that the fact that a new facility under 100,000 square feet has these two exemptions apply to it, about they have to use the water saving, cooling, and the non-diesel, but any expansion doesn't have to follow those rules. And so if there are meaningful conditions for new buildings, they need to be for existing building expansions as well. And also, going back to the concerns that were listed, square footage was not one of the 8 concerns that were listed. It was essentially, as staff mentioned, it was the megawatt and the electricity threshold, which we know we can't regulate because it is Duke Energy, and the county doesn't have the authority, and I understand that constraint. But what I don't understand and follow is how we came to the conclusion that, well, if we can't do megawatt restrictions, then let's go to square footage because they're not equivalent to each other. We know that when we talk about the floor area of these data centers, just a few years ago, a conventional server rack, like a conventional server system, would use roughly 5 to 15 kilowatts. But technology adapts, and we know that now that same footprint, the technology that exists today is roughly 10 times the load that it carried just a few years ago. And so when we set this exemption for 100,000 square feet, that's static. That's not going to change. But the technology is changing. So if we're accepting a 100,000 square foot facility, and they have they're less than 100 megawatts, say they're 50 megawatts, but in 2 years, new technology may be coming in that they start replacing their components within there, that they're actually in the same square footage area able to fit in more servers because they take up less space and using more electricity. So none of that is going to change, that square footage threshold that we're setting now is going to stay static. Also, sorry, I'm trying to fast. So the standards that we're spending the next 9 months writing is never going to reach these companies that may potentially come in during this moratorium period, because we're already allowing them to come in at 100,000 square feet. They can expand and grow within themselves above the concerns that we actually have around electricity usage within that same square footage area. But what isn't going to reverse in this 9 months and not going to stay static or in 9 years, is what's getting built, because I speak very often about my kids. I have Alia's just turned 4 on Friday. Of those 2, the water that they drink, that they breathe, that all of us breathe, and the power bills that their generations are going to inherit are set by what we do now. And that timeline is going to far outlast this 9-month moratorium and far outlast any of us sitting up here. And so we have to consider what a building approved during this moratorium, the decades of impact that it's going to have. And I understand, and I support, innovation and companies coming to Durham and creating jobs and all of those things. But again, we're talking about a 9-month period that, for me, in my perspective, that a delay for a company of 9 months, it's monetary. But the impact on folks' health and well-being and financial stability is going to last a lifetime for what we approve. And then if we're also talking about water, the drought map, I looked at the City of Durham's drought map before this. They last released one on August 20th. it currently says that North Carolina has now been in a drought for a year, and the flat river gauge at Bahama and in North Durham County is still at a record low. And our water reservoirs that we use for drinking water, Lake Michie, is down 6.5 feet, and Little River Reservoir is down 12 feet below normal. And we're in the middle of a drought, and we're talking about these systems that use vast amounts of water. And we have the state that's telling consumers that they have to conserve water, telling folks they have to do full loads of laundry, hold off on washing your car or watering your lawns, but then we're going to be okay with these facilities that are still going to be consuming significantly more amounts of water than an average consumer is. And going into the exemptions, a moratorium has a specific job, which is to hold things still while we do the work of the research of what UDO changes we want. And the UDO changes is where we will set the definitions, the thresholds, and exemptions. Those all belong in the UDO ordinance amendment, where we study them before we define them. And we have the Planning Commission that steps in and provides it, and a real public process that we bring together stakeholders that I want to see our community partners, our business partners, everyone come together to have that conversation, but we haven't done that. So putting them in the moratorium does the opposite of what a moratorium is supposed to be for. And we already have very limited powers by our state government here in North Carolina. County governments can't regulate a lot of things. So why are we putting ourselves into a tighter box by putting in these exemptions that are going to be dictating us that we're going to allow any of these 100 square foot data centers that we still don't know the impacts of? I'm skipping some parts. And we already know that the state, I'm going to just summarize this section. I was going to go into about how the state right now already has so many tax exemptions for these data centers. And we know that in Loudoun County, one of the things that that elected officials and policy officials who support the data centers constantly tout is how much revenue is generated from sales tax and their revenue. We don't have those powers in North Carolina to generate the same amount of like the $2 billion that Loudoun County has because they're exempt. And we even have Republicans within our own General Assembly saying that we do need to reverse those. So this is a bipartisan issue that Republicans are saying are coming out against these data centers and creating exemptions for them as well as tax breaks. Now, and also, I mean, we know we had a really tough budget cycle this year. Our own budget director told us just a few weeks ago that we can anticipate over the next 4 years, at minimum, probably having to have a 4-cent property tax rate increase to keep up with our debt that we have. And then we're going to be inviting in these companies that we're not going to be generating as much revenue from them that would balance that off, but we are going to be having more capacity needs for them at the same time. And all of these policy decisions, they don't happen by accident. They happen because somebody made the decision to allow it to happen, whether indirectly or directly. And we see what the lobbying industry, and I'm not saying that this is what's happening here, but it's just overall in the tech industry and the oil industry, the pharma industry, we have lobbyists that spend millions and hundreds of millions of dollars lobbying for their specific policy stances to avoid regulations. Because in a capitalist society, what we get is these oligarchs and systems that care about their bottom line and what profit they're going to make, and they do so at whatever expense there is to others as long as they are shielded. And when we're writing this moratorium and this UDO change, we have the opportunity to say that we're not okay with that anymore related to data centers. And I want us to have like a little bit of a thought exercise because I was thinking about this. I spoke to the Duke Ethics staff retreat last week, and they were asking questions about data centers and policy. And, somebody was asking, well, AI is going to be inevitable. We're going to be using it. So how do you oppose something and oppose these data centers when it's something that likely the county and yourself are going to be using one day or another. And I compared it to, the fast fashion industry. All of us need to wear clothes. We all have to cover ourselves. But that doesn't mean I condone the fast fashion industry and the sweatshops that exist in Bangladesh and other countries where they pay folks 20 cents a day to produce 100 garments a day. But if I had the opportunity to go back before the fast fashion industry began booming, I would have been advocating for stricter regulations on that. And that's just the same as if we think about going back to even here in this country, back to 2008. If we think about it, before the financial crash, people were warning us that mortgage underwriting had collapsed, that leverage in the system was untenable, and that, these derivatives were vague and that they were vague by design. They were met with pushback and told that they didn't understand the market and that regulation was going to strangle innovation and hurt ordinary homeowners and hurt people from being able to buy homes. But I think any of us, I hope, would say, if we look back at that time period, that we would have said, no, we should have had stricter regulations on lending standards and caps on financial leverage and all of those things to have prevented an economic collapse the way that we saw in 2008. So if we see history repeating itself in industries that were unregulated and we allowed them to go unregulated for so long and waited to change them after there was a collapse, after we have drastic impacts that, people lost lives after the economic crash. They lost their homes, they were unhoused. We shouldn't have to wait until the data center issue becomes a Loudoun County situation of 250 data centers. We shouldn't have to wait till every child is being born with forever chemicals already in their bloodstream, or every child is born with asthma, because we already learned our lesson from 2008. Even if it's a different industry, the lesson we should be learning is about regulation and how we as policy officials have that power. Almost done, I promise. And I'm not trying to say in any way whatsoever that the folks who work at these companies are evil or bad or anything. My dad, he worked in IT, in RTP, for over 30 years. The IT space is what actually brought my family and I here to this country. So our entire livelihood has depended on IT. But the issue is that these corporations, they're going to do whatever they can to maximize their returns. We see this even with wind and solar. We know wind and solar is cheaper to produce, is cheaper to put up farms and everything, and it's better for our environment. But the oil industry and lobby is never going to want us to move towards that because they're going to lose their financial capital. They could shift to become solar farmers and wind farmers, but they want it easy for them. And that's going to be the same with this industry, with the tech industry. Tech industry could be doing research of how, if they have closed loop systems, how to make them without PFAS, but that only way they're going to do that is if they're pressured to, because no one is going to be allowing them to build while they emit toxic chemicals into our water, while they emit toxic fumes into our air. The only way they're going to do that is if they're forced to. And this is one of the very limited powers that we have within Durham County as a county government in North Carolina, is our land use. So whatever we decide today, it is going to be a choice that is going to have a lasting impact. It's not going to be just a 9-month impact. And that's why I hope that we have the understanding that this 9 months should be, it's not a total ban on any data center forever and ever. It is 9 months that we actually research what regulations, how we define it, actually put a use case in our UDO related to data centers, and come back with staff for the UDO changes that the city and county will put together. And I did have a motion I wanted to present for amendments to it, but I don't know if you wanted to wait. Should I wait till after comments or bring? Yes, that was.
Commissioner Valentine.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So let me just acknowledge the comments made by my esteemed colleagues thus far on what I consider to be a very complex and nuanced issue for our community, and say thank you to the community for coming out and expressing themselves in the marketplace of ideas. We've had an opportunity over the last several months, quite frankly, to hear from many of our residents, and I want you to know that I've taken very much care in reading through what some of the concerns are in our community. I hear fear and uncertainty about data centers in general and what that invokes in individuals in our community, particularly at a time when our resources are being strained and stretched as a result of our growth. And those who know me and have followed me know that I take very seriously issues, particularly as they deal with our water and our waterways, pollution, and in the instance of data centers, generally noise and other environmental concerns. And so I take all of those considerations into the decisions that I make. And about growth in general in our community, it has always been my position that we need to be smart in how we move forward. A great deal about this discussion, which I think that was alluded to by at least one of the county commissioners thus far, dates back to a decision in November of 2005 when this board voted unanimously to open up RTP for RTP 3.0 for both residential and mixed-use development. And so people had a vision back in 1959 that led to exponential growth in our state over seven decades. And we made a commitment to opening a park. Again, I'll reiterate, unanimously. And I don't want to be in a position not to honor that commitment, because RTP has been the economic driver for our community, for our state, and for our nation. And that means a lot. In fact, that is a contributing factor in the standard of living that we now enjoy here in Durham County. Now, overall, I believe that there is a consensus in our community that, in fact, this is not Loudoun County. And I will fight to ensure that this will never be Loudoun County. But the discussion here today is about excluding hyperscale data centers, ones that are AI focused, ones that are considered to be mega data centers. It's clear, and I think everyone agrees, that's not consistent with the values of our community. And when we had staff go to do the homework and come up with an exemption or several exemptions, I believe it was in the spirit of ensuring that we did not impact on our ability to attract business to Research Triangle Park. And I believe that the spirit of those exemptions capsulizes that. Now, I've spoken from this dais before and expressed a concern about what that 100,000 square foot exemption actually means in light of how fast technology is moving. But it's my understanding today with regards to guardrails That represents one of the only guardrails that we potentially have during the period when we come up with a permanent solution for this issue for our community. And so it's not my intent to be long-winded in my presentation here this evening, but to the extent that amendments are opposed, I would be in favor of looking at the language from 4A being integrated into 4D, and also that we consider whether or not 100,000 square feet should actually be the guardrail. And so to the extent that there's some other considerations around that, I'd be willing to entertain that in light of the fact that the county is different. We have considerations that are different from the city. RTP, Trayburn, and other incorporated areas. But again, this is not Loudoun County, and I will continue to fight with everything within me that these hyperscale data centers not come to Durham County. Chair, I yield.
Commissioner Jacobs.
Thank you. I just first want to say I appreciate all the comments of my amazing colleagues. And I really appreciate everyone who's been here tonight. This is a very emotional issue. I can feel it in every single speaker who got up here tonight. People feel very deeply about this issue, and it really touches a lot of things that we don't have any control over, like the role of AI in our society today, and you know where we're headed. In many realms, and so that obviously is not something that we can control. We can control, though, whether we do have the hyperscale and AI data centers in our community. And again, to echo everyone, that they are very frightening, and I share people's fears about their impact on communities and our environment. But again, I've read every email, people who have shared information with me. I've read every article that's been sent to me, because I, again, think it's important that I have a responsibility to educate myself. So I did go to a forum in New Orleans last month. That was a national forum, session on data centers last week. We had one here, and I also participated in a webinar that the League of Municipalities provided, and I will continue to try to learn as much and ask as many questions as I can. I've always felt like my job as a county commissioner is to listen to everyone and try to make the most informed decision that I can in the best interest. So I do want to note that as I did my research, so Person County, which Commissioner Burton went to, is being built by Microsoft on 1,350 acres. In other rural counties, there is a 1.3 million square feet meta campus in Rutherford County, an 800-acre Amazon campus in Richmond County, and a 1 million square foot Apple Maiden campus in Catawba County. I think it is really important, though, that we ground this discussion in the realities in Durham. So that's why I tried to say before, right now, what we have, even in the proposed language, there's not going to be this type of development in Durham. And again, as I was trying to ask in my questioning, I think it is important to understand that we have to consider the Research Triangle Park in our decision making. As other commissioners have noted that this is not just unique to Durham, but actually North Carolina and very few places in the United States have research and development parks like we do, and it is the source of a lot of the revenue, sales tax revenue, property tax revenue that basically funds Durham County government. So, and we have Duke is one of our our major employer in Durham, but also we have 400 companies in RTP, and they're not just all big companies. There are a lot of small companies. If you've ever been out to the frontier, there are a lot of startups. There are a lot of small companies and businesses. They are entrepreneurs, and there are life science companies, pharmaceutical. There are companies doing electric vehicle manufacturing and technology. It's a whole range of things, and a lot of things that are about making our world better, related to diseases, and again, green technology. But one of the things that for me is most important is that there are a lot of really good jobs in RTP. And Durham County, since I've been a county commissioner, has been very focused on how do we get Durham residents into these jobs. So the county, we have been investing in programs like the Bulls Academy with Made in Durham, where we are specifically targeting young people of color, a lot of them who didn't graduate from high school, and helping them get the certification so they can go into these life science jobs. And I went to their recent graduation and met a young person who just got a job at United Therapeutics, another who's been offered jobs in RTP. I say all this to say that for me, I do have to be grounded in thinking about impacts to RTP. And from my understanding is that what we are looking at is, and what we've heard from stakeholders in RTP is that what we need to pay attention to around unintended consequences is the enterprise and the edge data centers that are helping just the day-to-day functioning. A lot of these companies, they don't have their own data centers, but they will use whatever data centers that are close to them for storage and processing of information. So this is, again, what, I feel like I have to take into consideration. Our congressional district has lost more federal funding than anywhere else in the United States. So we've had hits to EPA, NIH, RTI, FHI. It's estimated that we've lost over 6,000 jobs under the Trump administration. So it's real. And so for me, I'm looking for what makes sense in terms of having some realistic, reasonable guardrails so that we're not, because what we're hearing from some of these companies is that they want to renovate their data centers within the next 9 months, and just making renovations to actually make them more energy efficient or anything, they would not be able to do it under a blanket moratorium. And then also, we also had heard that there was plans for building, again, one of these enterprise edge centers on some land that, anyway, the overall impact that we've heard is about $500 million if we don't allow anything to happen at all in RTP over the next 9 months. I think it's important to understand that there is no impact. And I also don't want to overpromise, and that's why I was trying to ask the questions about what can we or we not do, even after 9 months. I don't want to overpromise on us being able to address some of the really valid issues, for instance, around the water. I'm really concerned about that whether we're even going to be able to address that in our final ordinance. These are, some of the things that I'm thinking about, and I do appreciate the staff bringing us something that would provide some way for some of the economic activity to continue. RTP is trying to pivot. RTP 3.0 is about trying to make RTP a live, work, play environment, and the county has been really invested in it. We've spent $20 million on the hub as the first model, but the idea is that there will be 40,000 people eventually living there, and the reason I was asking about the RTP 3.0 is because it's my understanding that anybody who came forward with a site plan would actually have to go under some rigorous requirements that we actually can't provide ourselves under our current zoning ordinance. One of the things I learned in the session from the School of Government is that we're unfortunately going to be impacted, and I should have asked you this earlier, Sarah, but the downzoning statute that's in place right now, it's statute 160D-601, that is now restricting counties from doing any type of downzoning, and this is actually could be a very serious issue when we look at what we can do with a data center ordinance. I think for me, one of the hopes is that the fact that we have the RTP 3.0, we may actually have more authority in RTP to have more control. And Pablo, I do want to address what you said about the special tax district. So just so you know, they are using that money to build a multimodal hub in RTP. So we have transit. They're using it to help build a triangle bikeway so people can bike to work. And they're helping the county out with that money too, because they're paying for a space for the sheriff's deputies. So I just think it's important for folks to know that that's how they're actually helping pay for things that we don't have to pay for out of our budget. Anyway, I just think it's important for me that I have to weigh all of these things, and I take very seriously all of the issues that everyone has raised. Again, we will not be allowing hyperscale data centers if we do these exemptions, but I want to make sure we don't have unintended consequences of the reality of the jobs that people depend on in our community being able to continue moving forward. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Jacobs. And I'm not going to talk long. I was not expecting to be talking from this dais at 11:30 at night. I really appreciate the public comment, all the public comment. And we've gotten a lot of emails, and there's nothing surprising that we heard here tonight. But what I found interesting is, and I actually said this the last meeting we had, is everyone here on this side of the dais, on that side of the dais, agrees with the AI data centers. That's a given that we all support not even just a moratorium, but if we had the opportunity, we would ban hyperscale AI use data centers. I'm no different from that. I absolutely agree with that. I think the challenge and some of the threads I heard through tonight is there may be confusion about what this moratorium actually is. I heard a person say that they were told that a data center was going to be built, that we're voting on building a data center near their home or something like that. And this person said that made her worry, which is why they came down here to speak, right? We heard someone, a few people say, not all data centers are the same, but we need to ban the AI data centers, which are all of them. And that's a challenge as well. The reason I bring that up is because that not all data centers are the same. It is the root of the question that I started with when I started meeting with people and organizations about this, is how are we defining that? Because they're not all AI use data centers. And that was my simple question, what are we defining here? What are we trying to stop? From that point, it was a disagreement, a difference of opinion, a disagreement. Some want total stoppage of anything related to a data center, and some don't. I don't necessarily think that all data centers are AI use. Okay, I just don't. And that's what this moratorium represents. Now, I want to clarify something because it was brought up in public comment. I did not come up with 100,000 square feet. The first time I heard it was in the meeting. And I said, that may be a good in-between measure. I even asked, what does that mean? What are the sizes? What does that mean? So no, I did not come up with that, and it magically showed up in this. I asked questions about it. So I think, as I mentioned last time as well, we don't have the luxury of just going without oversight in what actually the outcomes of decisions that we make, what those outcomes are. We don't have the luxury of not thinking about that. And so we have to take the time to do that. And I understand that's essentially what the moratorium is for, but the more immediate needs as well, we have to think about that as well. And that's why my position hasn't changed on the need to make sure that we're structuring Durham against AI data centers, AI-based or AI-use data centers, even the large data centers, while also allowing the flexibility to make sure that we're not handicapping the small companies, American Underground, the small companies that don't use AI data centers, that don't build or use those AI data centers. They use data retrieval. We had a couple developers come up here today and speak in favor of a moratorium without exceptions, and that's fair. But those developers, by nature of today's development, and that's what I used to do when I was at IBM as well, Those developers use data. That data is stored somewhere. Somewhere. Depending on what company that they work for, it's probably at the building or near the campus in which they work. If they work from home, wherever their company is located. But they use data. And a loosely written moratorium could prevent those individuals from continuing to innovate from their jobs as developers. Every single company here, no matter where you work, no matter what you do, you work in a restaurant, you work on a farm, you work at a school, you work at a Parks and Rec, wherever, inside, outside, that company in somewhere uses data retrieval of some sort. If it's transactions, if it is customer data, if it is plant data, if it whatever it may be. You use that. If you work in manufacturing, you obviously understand data and machinery is used. That's the only thing I want to make sure that we're not handicapping during this period. Vice Chair Alam, you make very good points about some of the parts of the moratorium. And along with Commissioner Valentine, I'm okay with us kind of reviewing what that actually means and making sure that we are not speaking double or we're not handicapping with 100,000, whatever that is. But I want to be clear that we have the responsibility to limit, as Commissioner Jacobs says, the unintended consequences of anything that we do. Not just this decision. We have to make sure that we're limiting that. And I think this moratorium, the way that it's written, helps us to do that for these 9 months. Now, regardless of what happens with this moratorium today, this is only temporary. And the wording and the regulation and things are going to be in the UDO, and it's going to be a lot more complicated than this deciding what level in which we try to minimize the challenges. That's going to be a bigger problem. So, I support this moratorium the way it is written. However, I am open, like Attorney Williams said, I'm open to us making adjustments because it was written that way. Making adjustments, making sure that we resolve some of these inconsistencies that have been identified. I'm okay with doing that. But the spirit of what we have here satisfies what it is that I want to make sure that we're preventing. It keeps AI hyperscale out while also, allowing regular use, data retrieval type data centers to make sure that we're actually making, we have balance in what we're doing. Okay? So, with the comments being completed, there's requests for motions to be put forward. Okay, well, there will be a motion to be put forward. Now, Commissioner Alam initially said she had a motion to put forward. I'll allow her to make her motion.
Thank you. Well, I have a couple, but I'm going to start at the top. My first motion would be that I would move to amend the proposed ordinance by removing section 4A and 4D, retaining section 4B and 4C, and by updating section 3 as necessary to match, so that the statutory statements match that amended scope.
Okay. Is there a second for Commissioner Lung's motion? Hearing none, the motion fails.
My next motion would be then I move to amend section 4D to apply the same cooling and backup generation conditions required under section 4A.
So moved.
Okay. So could you repeat that motion?
I move to amend section 4D to apply the same cooling and backup generation conditions required for section 4A.
Okay. So there's been a motion. Has been properly seconded. I'll open for discussion. Is there any discussion? Mr. Burton? No. Commissioner Valentine? No. Commissioner Jacobs, any discussion?
No, I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll place a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please use the same sign. All right. The motion to amend 4D with the same cooling and
Diesel, the backup generators.
backup generators, that's 4A. For the be combined.
Yeah, so this is the expansion versus new construction differentiation.
Okay.
And I had
All
some
right.
more,
That motion passes.
I had some more motions.
Okay. All right.
I move to amend section 4 to provide that, actually, correct me if I'm wrong, Maurice, is this one already, would it be covered from the clarifying question? I'm moving to amend section 4 to provide that separate buildings or phases on the same parcel of land under common ownership shall be aggregated into that. Okay, so then I would move to amend section 4A to require as a condition of exemption that an applicant certify in writing that its expected connected electrical load, its cooling system type and working fluid, and its backup generation fuel, and that we have that be as a public record.
Can we require
Can you? Are you talking about making sure that smaller buildings do not?
No, that was
Okay.
the first one. That Maureen's Deputy County Manager Jones said that's already in the language,
okay,
so that one's
okay,
next. But the
okay.
next one was that as a condition of exemption that the applicant has to certify what their expected electrical load is, since that's not something we can measure, but we can ask them what their expected electrical load is, as well as what type of cooling system type they'll use and the fluid that they'll be using in that cooling system, as well as what is their backup generation fuel.
And
is that for new construction?
That would
Or
be for
any.
any.
Okay. What? Let me before we get into discussion, we need to see if there's a second. Well, you know what? Let's do a discussion and see if we can get a second out of it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just have a question. So is the purpose just to be able to attain that information? Is that the goal?
Yeah,
to actually start understanding and getting that information?
And to be able to make sure that they are complying with what the exemptions are that are created, that we have in writing from them what type of cooling system they're using, their backup generation, and then the connected electrical load is not necessarily related to one of these exemptions, but it'll help us in the research process for the UDO changes.
Okay, second.
Okay, we have a motion. A motion on the floor has been properly seconded. Any further discussion?
Yes, Chair, can we do that? Can we place that restriction on an applicant?
Well, I don't think it's for like an approval or anything like that. I think it's for us to collect information about what they're doing.
Okay.
I think if it had to do with approval, that's something that would be in the legal stands, but I'm not a lawyer.
The way that I named it was that it would be a condition of qualifying for the exemption.
So that is approval.
So I think that we can ask for the information, but I think logistically we would have a problem, particularly with the electrical load, in making sure that they're actually using the amount that they are certifying, because I don't know how we would enforce that, particularly since we have no enforcement powers over the electrical usage. I'm not the expert in that field, but I think that that would be our biggest issue, because if they certify that their electrical usage is a certain level and then it's not, then what? So I see that as being the bigger problem there. I don't know if Sarah, that's right. Okay, thank you, Sarah. Yeah, I see that as the problem.
So, but if we had the condition that they have to certify in writing that that's what their expected is, we may not be able to regulate it, but we get in writing what they're expecting, because then that also provides transparency for us and for the community of when this data center comes in, what their expected electricity load is. And then as we continue to define and do the research, we can use that information about, well, this is the size of a data center that's come to Durham, their square footage, and this is what they have expected.
I would say, though, that since we will be using it as a condition, then that's where it starts to become a little more difficult.
The condition is them providing that certification of the putting it in writing.
Right. But what happens if they're telling you what they expect, but then what happens if it's above what they've told us? What would be the next step there?
Well, for the electrical load piece, I think we know that we don't have a way of measuring it, but to have them certifying that that's what they expect to use at least gives us one data point.
Well, not to, belabor, but I guess my question would be, then they could pretty much tell us anything. I mean, they could tell you what they expect, and that may very well be what they expect, but maybe not. Maybe they're lowering it just to make it sound better, but they know that it'll be more, and there's really nothing we can do after that. But just my thought.
Yeah, no. I understand that, I hear that. And I think for me, the reason I brought it forward is because there isn't a way for us to get that information any other way. Something is better than nothing to get this data from them.
I actually support that. I support that, even though there's not really an enforcement mechanism, but a data point, like you said. If they're now, the community knows. Now we know, like what their starting point is as far as their expected usage. I actually support, requesting that or requiring that to continue forward, but knowing that there's not really an enforcement mechanism right now. All right, so there's a motion on the floor. It's been properly seconded. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign?
I oppose.
Okay. And it passes 4-1. Okay.
And my last motion is moving that the plan of action that's in section 6, that we more definitively express, including a study of relationship between facility floor area and electrical load, the water and energy trade-offs of closed loop and other cooling technologies, including the disclosure of the fluids that they're using, and the emission profiles of non-diesel backup generators, and an aggregation of phasing standards that data centers may use, and that the staff report to the board on these items before we have our UDO language presented to us.
Okay, that's kind of a lot in a motion. So
I just asked a clarifying question. Maybe Sarah, if you could come up, if you feel like that's all stuff that you all can do.
All right, so let's, we're heading towards midnight. Let's try to wrap it up because I don't want another motion.
All right. I just don't want to. The staff are the ones who are going to have to do this, so I want to make sure that it makes sense to them. That's all.
I think we can certainly research those, just understand that we will be limited by whatever data we may or may not be able to get. So maybe some of the answers to some of those might be not as robust as we would like.
And my purpose of that motion is to have it more explicitly written, the direction to staff about the research we want to get back.
Second.
Okay. It's been properly moved and seconded. A very long motion. We'll have to go back on the.
I'll send it to Clerk Wallace.
Yeah, we'll have to listen to that again on video to get all of it. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please use the same sign. Passes unanimously. Okay, was that it? Okay, we got through our motions. Okay, so those were adjustments to the moratorium. All right. Thank you for those motions. All right. So that's it. No, that's it for the public hearing, right? Okay. All right. So we've gotten through that. The next item on the agenda is the boards and commissions, right?
I think the overall moratorium needs to be voted on as amended.
As amended. Okay. All right. Okay. So I'll accept the motion to approve the moratorium to include the amended pieces from the motions we just voted on, from the votes that we just took. With all of the remaining provisions as presented. Okay. All right. I'll accept the motion.
Second. Oh, wait, we need a first. Oh.
I asked for a motion. And you know what? We need a so moved. So.
Okay.
Second.
All right.
Okay.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the moratorium with the voted on changes, keeping in place the remaining provisions. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, please use the same sign.
Aye.
Oh. You opposed? Okay, all right. Okay. It passes 4-1. Okay. All right. Interesting. All right. So now we move on. And then it's the boards and commissions. Please leave. Please leave. All right, let's do the boards and commissions.
Okay, so we have the Durham Wake County's Research and Production Service District Advisory Committee. We had 3 vacant positions. The board has selected Gina Anderson, Randy Sauls, and Sarah Gaskill for those positions. We have the Opioid Settlement Advisory Committee. We had 1 vacant position, and the board has selected Elijah Bazemore for that position. Congratulations to all that were appointed.
All right, thank you very much. Last item on our agenda is adjournment. I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. We adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.